Hi friends, I'm Chelsea and I'm here with the mid-year freakout tag. So somehow we are at the halfway point of the year. It always goes by so fast. This is my second time doing this tag. I did it last year for the first time and I had a lot of fun. And so I've seen a couple people doing this video the last week or so. So I definitely wanted to jump in and do this for 2025. So if you aren't familiar, this is just a sort of tag to help you reflect on all the books you've read this year so far and putting them in different categories and whatnot. I don't know who originally did it, but I will put the questions in the comments if you want to do this tag. And this isn't part of the tag, but I just wanted to say a couple really quick stats and then jump into the questions. So at this point, the end of June, I have read 53 books, which is kind of insane to me. I have my goal set for 75 books, so definitely think I will meet that and probably exceed it. It's been a great reading year so far, and I've actually done 5 or 6 rereads, which is definitely out of the norm for me. I've been rereading the Hunger Games series and then a couple other books. And so yeah, lots of rereads this year. And then I have had 13 5-star reads, I think, which for a while there, I didn't have any. And then this month alone, I've had like 6 or 7 5-star reads. So kind of insane. I've read a lot of good books, even the ones that aren't 5 stars. I've had some really good reads and want to talk about them. Just like last year, I will not be able to pick just one book for each question. Sorry about that. I just have a really hard time narrowing things down, but I'm going to try to narrow it down as much as I can. So the first question is best book you've read so far in 2025. And yeah, I cannot pick just one. That would be impossible for me. I do have 3 to 4 books. Yes, I know. And this is hard because to me, it's like best versus favorite. A lot of these are new favorites, but I'm saying like best as far as quality and all the other factors involved. And so just keep that in mind because I have a lot of different books that I loved, but that fit into different categories. So one of them that I definitely think is one of my best reads so far is The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. I found this copy for like $2 or $3 at a library and very happy to have this on my shelf. This is like historical horror, pretty much set in Florida in the 1950s. This deals with the reform schools that were a real thing that happened during that time where boys would be taken to these schools that were basically a prison and a lot of them ended up dying and it was just a really bad situation. The main character in this, he is sent to this school. He's like 12 or 13, I think, really young. Yeah, 12-year-old Robbie Stevens. He's sent to this school, but he also has this like knack or whatever you want to call it for seeing ghosts. And he sees the ghost of his mother, but then he starts seeing other ghosts while he's at this school. And it's a whole thing. I'm not going to go deep into like the plot summaries of these books because I have a lot of books to talk about, but I just really love this book. It is a thick one. It's about 500, almost like 550 pages. I think I read it in like 5 days maybe, so I definitely read this one pretty quickly. The writing was great. It was very easy to get into. I really connected with the characters, thought the pacing was great, and just the setting, it was perfect for like those hot summer days. You could just feel that like stifling feel, not just from the weather, but also from just the situations. The horror was definitely from the people. Like there were some really heavy, disturbing things that happened in this book. I thought it just painted the picture so well, and it gave me insight into a part of history that I did not know about before reading. Really highly recommend. Great audiobook too. Love this book. Another one that I recently read, and this has been very high on my list for a while because a lot of people have been saying it's like their new favorite book. It's actually an older book, but it's kind of been making a resurgence, I think, and I recently read this, gave it 5 stars, and that is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I will talk about this more in my June wrap-up, I guess, because I haven't talked about it yet. I haven't even done my May wrap-up yet, but we will ignore that for now. I really don't want to talk about this a lot, though, because I have heard people say to go in blind, and I do agree. I really did not want to look up the plot summary or even what the genres were before reading it, and I think that really contributed to my reading experience. But I will just say that this features a group of female characters who are in this underground bunker and they have no idea how they got there, what their lives were like before, why they're there. It's just a very confusing, unsettling situation. And the main character, who I don't think she's ever named, she is the youngest. She's a child when she's there, but she has no memory of being anywhere else. And so the reader is kind of confused along with her. Just this very strong sense of dread. It's heavy and disturbing, but there's also beautiful themes of like survival and resilience and just female friendship and women coming together. I don't want to say much more than that, but this is a really short one, contrasting with the last book. I feel like it really packed a punch in a short amount of pages and just left me kind of staring at the wall for several minutes after finishing it, and definitely one I'll be thinking about for a while, so highly recommend. And then the last in this category are two books that kind of go together. I read them close to each other in February for Black History Month. I have one of them, but I don't have the other. So one of them is Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and then The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. And the reason I'm talking about them together is because this one was written in the 60s, I think, and Between the World and Me was written way later, like in the 2000s, and it was kind of inspired by this one. They're both in letter format, writing to either a son or a nephew or, you know, different like younger family members in their lives. They're both nonfiction, and they're both just from the author's perspective, writing about being a Black man in America and just the history of racism and prejudice and segregation and all that, and kind of the way that that has shaped and informed their lives and our current society, especially in the more recently written one. It's more relevant to our current time, of course, but even though this one was written way back in the 60s, it still feels very relevant, which is kind of sad. Yeah, they're just beautifully written, eloquently written books that are addressing the very real issues of racism, but without being cynical, without having hope. These are just must read. So this one and Between the World and Me, definitely books that will also stick with me for a while. So I'm going to have to speed it up because that was just the first question. And if you've been around for a while, you know I have a hard time being concise, so I will try my best. Next question is best sequel you've read so far in 2025. This was pretty easy. I have read several sequels, some that were a little disappointing, but some that I really enjoyed. And so this first one is another book I've read this month, and it's a new series that I am obsessed with. I should say the series isn't new, but it's new to me. And so I read Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole this month, and then pretty much as soon as I finished it, I ordered the second book and started it immediately because I was obsessed. And so the best sequel for me is Glow of the Everflame. So this is the Kindred's Curse saga, and I've heard great things about this series, that it's kind of like a slow burn romantasy, but with really good world building and great writing, great characters, you know, just kind of the whole package. And so I was really hoping that I would like it, and I absolutely did. I am obsessed. I read this 600-page book in 6 days, I think. So that just gives you a little insight into that. I just fully was wrapped up in this world. I haven't really felt this feeling about a fantasy series since ACOTAR, I guess, and I should say like a romantasy series. Definitely have enjoyed some just straight up fantasy series, but that feeling that I got from reading ACOTAR behind me, I finally found it in this series. And so loved the first book, loved the second book, and then the third book I am going to start pretty soon. The fourth book doesn't come out till next year, which is very sad. I'm not going to go into the plot summary, but if you want a slow burn romantasy with great fantasy elements and interesting layered characters, lots of interesting plot elements, really good pacing, I highly recommend this series. And then the other sequel I wanted to mention, I don't have it, but I'll hold up the first book so you can at least see a book. And so I've been reading the Naturals series this year. That probably comes as no surprise to y'all who have been watching my recent videos. And so yeah, I really enjoyed the first book a lot. So far I've given all the books 4.5 stars, so I've really enjoyed them all equally. And the sequel to this is Killer Instinct, and it was really a great follow-up to this first book. I feel like this had a lot of just setup, of course, of the characters and this Naturals program where you have teenagers who have different skills that they use to catch serial killers pretty much, and also to solve cold cases. The second book really takes what we read in the first book and really develops it. Lots more disturbing serial killer elements and development of a certain character's story that I found really interesting. Some high stakes, intense moments, and just really quick, easy reads, bingeable, all of that. So I've been loving this series, and yeah, Killer Instinct was the sequel that I really enjoyed. Okay, question 3 is new release you haven't read yet but want to. I have a couple here, and I'm just going to tell you these are all pretty basic and all very much popular reads right now. but I'm feeling the FOMO and want to read them. And I only own one of them. This one is very high on the priority list. So My Friends by Frederick Bachman came out last month, I think. I put this on my summer TBR, and I definitely plan to read this soon. So hopefully within the next month or so. And then the others I am waiting on library holds. I don't own them yet, but another one is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Really enjoyed the Shepherd King duology. It's behind me somewhere. And yeah, I'm excited for her new release. And then Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love her books too. I have some on my shelf, and I'm really curious about this new one. And then lastly, another one people have been reading is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. And people have been saying it kind of is similar to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which is definitely my favorite book by her. So I can't wait to read that, and hopefully my library holds will come in soon. Okay, I've lost track of what question we're on at this point, so I'll just say next question. Not that you needed that preamble. But yeah, the next question is most anticipated release for the second half of this year. And so this one is actually one I said in my video last year because I thought it was coming out last year and it got pushed back. So I'm going to say it again because it really is highly anticipated, and I hope it won't disappoint because I've been waiting for it for like a year and a half now. So that is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. She wrote The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. You get the idea. And I really love that book. Really heartwarming, cozy fantasy with found family, good romance, all that. And so I don't know much about the plot of this one, but it seems like an equally cozy kind of book, and I can't wait to read it. And then there's so many good books coming out at the second half of this year, so I could literally just scroll through my Goodreads want to read list, but I just picked out a couple, and this one I hope it is coming out this year. I don't know for sure, but it seems like Rebecca Ross's new book, Wild Reverence, is coming out. And again, one that I don't know a ton about. I think it is kind of in the world of Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, but maybe like featuring other characters. I could be fully off on that. But I do know that I've really enjoyed her writing. I also read A River Enchanted and really like that. So I'm excited to read her new book. And then the last one, which again, I think it's coming out at the end of this year. This is Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldree. So he wrote Legends and Lattes and Bookshops and Bone Dust. So another kind of cozy fantasy with some like Dungeons and Dragons vibes, just like magical creatures, very bookish themes, and just great atmosphere and all that. So I'm intrigued by that new release and definitely will read it when it comes out. Okay, getting a little negative here. This is Biggest Disappointment / DNF. And surprisingly, I haven't DNF'd or did not finish any books this year, which is weird, but I definitely have a handful of books that I wish I had DNF'd, so I need to remember that and put books down when I'm not enjoying them. So I do have several disappointments, but I'm just gonna go with 2 of them and move on. So unfortunately, one that I really wanted to love, mainly because the cover's so beautiful and because it sounded really great, was Watermoon by Samantha Soto Yambao. It makes me so sad because I really had high hopes for this one, and I know some people really do love it, but it was just not for me. I feel like every time I tried to pick it up, I had to force myself to keep reading, and I kept asking like, should I DNF? I did ultimately push through, but I don't know. It just was not a book that I loved. I think it was too abstract and whimsical for me, which I do like whimsy in my books, but I think when a book is too out there and confusing and like fever dream-esque, it just loses me a little bit, and I need a little more like concrete feelings, if that makes sense. It's basically about this magical pawn shop that people can go and pawn their choices, their regrets, and all that. And the main character, she's on this search for her father who has disappeared, and she and this man from another world are off in her world looking for him, and they go through all these very enchanting, magical places. It was just quite the journey, and the concept of it sounded great, but just not something that I loved in execution, and I didn't love the characters either. The romance felt off for me. Just not a favorite, but that's okay. And then the other I kind of had low expectations for, but also really wanted to love it. And this is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. Another one that you either love or hate, I feel like, and most people, I feel like, have been loving it. It's another one I thought about DNFing, partially because it's so long. It was like a 20-hour audiobook, I think. I will say I loved the audiobook, and there were some characters that kept me going, and it kept me intrigued enough, but I just felt like honestly the writing was not good. The world building did not feel very fleshed out to me. Like I didn't have a good grasp on the world, and like the romance part of it I felt like was just your classic like enemies to lovers, but really they kind of like each other from the beginning, and a lot of banter and bickering that was getting annoying, just very like physical relationship focused. I mean, it's a spicy romantasy, so I should have known, but it just was not my style of romantasy, and the plot just felt kind of convoluted to me too. So a lot of things that did not click for me, but again, a lot of people love it, so I could be the outlier here. Okay, next question is biggest surprise, and I do have a couple here that I have physical copies of. And so the first one is The Wedding People by Alison Espach. This one had not really been on my radar a whole lot. I don't know why. I think it won the Goodreads Choice Award for literary fiction or contemporary fiction. I don't know why I didn't think I would like it, or it just wasn't at the top of my radar, I guess. But I read it for Shuba's Fable Book Club in January, and I loved it. I listened to the audiobook, and then I had to order the book. I found it on Pango for like $5. So I had to get it, and I will probably reread it one day because that's how much I enjoyed it. This one has kind of a interesting setup that could be hit or miss for some people. Basically, it's about this girl who's at rock bottom, and she goes to this hotel on the coast of Maine basically to end her life. But she shows up and there's this wedding going on, and she's trying to, get into this hotel room, but she meets the bride, and the bride's like, you're going to ruin my wedding, and they like get to know each other and stuff. That's kind of a very convoluted plot summary. We start off pretty heavy and depressing, and the character's at a very low point, like I said, but then I don't want to spoil anything, but it becomes a little more lighthearted and hopeful, and there's just some really interesting character dynamics and a lot of things that really made me think and feel. I thought the writing was really good, loved the audiobook, and so this was such a pleasant surprise. Highly recommend. And then another one was The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. I read this for my book club back in February, I think, and that was my first book by this author, and I understand why she's such a popular historical fiction author now. I don't know why. I guess whenever I go into historical fiction, I think it's going to be like kind of hard to get into, kind of dense, and just maybe a little confusing, or I don't know. For some reason, I have that feeling, and that's not always the case. And for this book, I really did not have a hard time getting into it at all. It was a very easy and quick read for being a historical fiction. It bounces around between a lot of different characters as we feature this, what's the word? Like a boarding house. I think it was set in the 50s, and there was like this female boarding house, and so it's a cast of characters who all live in this house together, and they kind of become a family and become friends and all that. We are during the time period of the McCarthy era and the Red Scare and all this, and it was cool to learn about kind of a different part of history that I didn't know about as much. And there were also some kind of like mystery elements and twists and turns that I was not expecting. So yeah, that was just really a delightful read, and I definitely want to read more by this author. And then the last one is another book I've read this month, and I gave 5 stars. It might be more like a 4.5, but I had such a good time, and that is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. This is like a YA historical fantasy romance. It's described as, let's see, there's like 3 things. Bridgerton meets The Cruel Prince meets The Bachelor, I think. It's kind of set in like an alternate history of England where I think it's the War of the Roses. An immortal Fae Queen wins the war, and she rules England or wherever they are. I don't remember much clearly, but it's very much like high society, and the current season of debutantes and, the new women who are being presented into society, they're also up for a competition to win the hand of the Queen's son, who is a Fae prince, and so they're trying to win his hand in marriage, and Ivy, the main character, she's part of this. So yeah, it has very much like a competition feel, but set in like the Regency era, which I always love. It was so fast-paced, so interesting. I just had a great time. And I also wasn't sure if it was going to be a standalone or a series when I first picked it up, and definitely by the ending I knew there was going to be another book, and so I just had a great time, and I definitely plan to read the second book. Okay, next question is new to you or debut newest favorite author. I think I kind of changed the wording of that, but basically the point of it is like, who's a new favorite author who you'd never read before. And I have two here. And so one is Kennedy Ryan. I read Before I Let Go. I also read This Could Be Us. And there's a third book in this kind of like interconnected standalone romance series. And I'll talk a little bit more about that specifically, but I just really enjoyed her writing in the first and the second book. Just the way she makes her characters feel so real and dealing with very heavy, serious real life issues, but also creating a really great romance. I've really enjoyed her writing and want to read more of her books. And then another that I could say the same thing about is Sabaa Tahir. I read An Ember in the Ashes and A Torch Against the Night, and still need to read the other two books in the series, and I loved it. It's another example of young adult done well. I just ate up the first book specifically. I enjoyed the second book too, and definitely want to read more of her books as well. Next is Newest Fictional Crush. Okay, hands down, he beats everybody else. Luther from Spark of the Everflame and Glow of the Everflame. I feel like he has set the bar for male main characters in fantasy romance books. Like, he's given Rhysand a run for his money, which is a lot. That's a heavy claim. I just love him, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I also really loved Devon from The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love. I will talk about that book soon, but he was just so fun, very devious and kind of mischievous, but really sweet. Really enjoyed him. And then also Elias from An Ember in the Ashes. He's a little younger, so I don't know if that's weird or not, but I really liked him. He's really sweet too. Just really connected to him and his struggles and his story. So yeah, there's a lot to choose from, but those are my main ones. And then the next one is Newest Favorite Fictional Character. And so this is where I talk a little more about Before I Let Go, Kennedy Ryan's first book in this romance series. I really loved the whole Wade family. I think it's the Wades. Yeah, Yasmin, Josiah, Deja, and Kasim. I had to take a second to remember those names. I will say Deja kind of got on my nerves. If you read the book, you know, but I absolutely fell in love with their family. And again, they felt so real. Even from like, I don't know, 50 pages into the book, I was like so emotionally attached to them and just wanted the best for all of them, was rooting for them. There's a lot of heavy things going on in their lives. Basically, Yasmin and Josiah, they were married, they had children, they have a business together, but they had a lot of really traumatic things that happened and they separated and divorced. And now in this book, they're finding their way back to each other as a couple. It's very emotional. I absolutely fell in love with their family. And then another one, which I haven't talked about this book yet, I will soon. Two other new favorite fictional characters are Siona and Tamil from Blood Over Brighthaven. And listen, I know Siona is very much a morally gray, slightly unlikable character. There's definitely some flaws, but I really enjoyed that. I love reading about a complex, layered character who is not like the perfect example of what you should be as a human, who has flaws, but who's really just trying their best. I really enjoyed reading about her. And I also really loved Tamil, who is her like assistant. She is the first female mage to be at this university, and so she comes up against a lot of obstacles, and Tamil is like the janitor who they just assigned to her because they're like, oh, he's nothing, he can be your assistant, because they don't think that she's worth even having a good assistant. But he turns out there's more than meets the eye, and I really loved him as a person and a character. And that leads me into the next question, which is a book that made me cry, and Blood Over Brighthaven absolutely destroyed me emotionally. It was a lot. It's really interesting, like great fantasy world, great writing, and a lot of relevant kind of political stances or issues, I should say, just things to think about that relate to our current society. But ultimately, by the end of the book, I was just a little devastated, and I can't talk about it because it would be a major spoiler. But that book, definitely one of the best books I have read this year, but I wanted to put it here because I definitely cried at the end of that. Another one that I cried over was Hello Beautiful by Anne Napolitano. Love this book. Another new author that I want to check out more of. This is like an homage to Little Women, follows four sisters, and the man who falls in love with them. And we just follow their family over the course of time, and lots of drama and tension. I cried a lot at the end. Again, I can't spoil anything. Actually, I cried multiple times, but the end, I just sobbed. So if you want a good cry and to feel things, then I highly recommend this book. And then also, before I let go, I've mentioned it a couple times, but that book made me cry multiple times too. Heavy stuff, and definitely look up trigger warnings because there are some kind of sensitive topics. But yeah, just done so well and very emotional in my opinion. Now, switching it up to a book that made me happy, I have a couple, and I only have one of them with me, but one was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I listened to the audiobook, and this was just a really cute romance. It's not like a 5-star read, but it was really fun. And it follows two characters named Lucy and Aiden, and Lucy is a single mom who has not really had a very active dating life lately, and her daughter calls into this radio show where Aiden is the host. He's kind of given up on love, typical like cynical, grumpy kind of guy. And Lucy is on the show, and they talk, they connect, and then eventually they meet in real life, and it goes from there. And it was just really cute. Lots of funny moments, really fun audiobook. It was just one of those romances that I really enjoyed listening to, and yeah, made me smile and laugh a lot. Another one is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Very different vibes, a middle grade classic. I loved reading this during springtime because it just had beautiful descriptions of nature and just an enchanting feel with like The Secret Garden. I'm sure you're familiar with the story. Lots of beautiful themes and very heartwarming, very good classic. And then another one that I was just giggling and smiling and, all those things was The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton. Kind of a ridiculous, like almost over the top ridiculous book, but it worked for me. And this is a historical fantasy rom-com, kind of like Emily Wilde. We have like rivals to lovers situation, but they are bird professionals, scholars of birds, I guess. I don't know, whatever an ornithologist is. They are taking part in this hunt to find this magical bird all throughout England, and it's described as a romp, which is so accurate. And I just love the banter and dynamic between Beth and Devin, the two main characters. So funny. I was just laughing and smiling a lot and totally rooting for their romance. So this one definitely made me happy. Okay, we got 2 more questions here. I'm trying to not ramble too much, but there's so many good books. I just want to gush about them all, And so this one is most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. And received is what I'm going to go with because a lovely booktube friend sent me these 2 special editions of books that I'm really excited to read. I don't think I've had like legit special editions before, and so I was so excited. And these were sent by Melanie from A Dark Corner at the Library, and thanks again. Very sweet, very thoughtful. And so the first one is Starling House. We got a nice like shiny situation, sprayed edges, all of that. Hopefully you can see it. And then you can see here it's kind of like a see-through cover, which is really cool. And then the inside, just like a, Gothic style. We have like some stars. I don't know if you can tell. And then the back as well. Love when the naked hardcover is just as pretty as the outside. And we also have like the end pages and whatnot. So very pretty. I'm really excited to read this book too. I've heard that it's really good. Like a Gothic fantasy, I think. I don't know. I know it's fantasy. That's all I know. And then this one, which is thicker and heavier than I thought, but another beautiful one that I can't wait to read. This is The Courting of Bristol Keats by Mary E. Pearson. Look at that beautiful cover. Again, we got some sprayed edges here. This on the back. I don't know what it says, but there's something there. And then take this off. So first of all, we have the inside. Very pretty. And then we have this here, which is so pretty. I think I showed you these already in the back. Oh, I love it so much. And then, yeah, we have a picture on the inside. I just love this. And again, so sweet of you to send these to me, Melanie. I am going to be displaying these on my shelves and reading them for sure. And yeah, this one's also a fantasy. I think there's like some fae. It says dangerous fae, dark secrets, addictive romance. All of those things sound great. Very excited to own these books. Okay, and the last question is, what books do you really need to read by the end of this year? And I kind of just referred to my 25 and 2025 list because I will say I'm not doing great on it. So I need to get to some of those books. And all of these are kind of thick and intimidating books. So we have a theme here. One of them I for sure plan to read by the end of the summer, hopefully. And that is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. It's been on my list for a long time, like dystopian fantasy, the first in a trilogy. I've heard nothing but great things. It won the Hugo Award. And yeah, I just need to read this. So I will for sure. Another one that I also plan to read, hopefully starting the summer and by the end of the year, is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. I already mentioned it in my summer TBR, but I really do want to read this year. So here's to hoping that I start soon. Another one that I kind of forgot that I put on my list and do still really want to read is Long Bright River by Liz Moore. She wrote The God of the Woods, which I loved. This seems to have a very different vibe, but still kind of that mystery, like literary mystery, family themes. Really want to read this. Hopefully I will actually do it. And then the last one, I am planning on finishing the Mistborn trilogy. I'll be reading The Hero of Ages next month, and then I will be freed up to read this bad boy, Wind and Truth. I bought it when it came out, and that was 6 months ago, and I still haven't read it. But I really do want to read Book 5 of the Stormlight Archive, and so I will face that fear and read it by the end of the year, maybe this fall or winter. But yeah, for sure, by the end of the year. I'm saying that right now. And those are the questions. I'm not going to tag anyone, but please feel free to do this video if you want to, because it's really fun. Let me know if you do so I can watch your video. I think that is it for now. So thanks so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye.